Waking up in a cabin buried beneath snow, not inches, not feet, maybe meters deep. The walls of the snow are so deep that daylight barely reaches you. Your children are crying and scared. The last scraps of food are gone. The temperature outside the cabin plunged below freezing, and inside people's bodies are slowly breaking down, one by one. The cold is so thick you feel it in your bones, and yet the threat of death, you feel it in your spine. And somehow, you survive. This is the story of the women of the Donner Party. When people hear the words Donner Party, they usually think of one unimaginable thing: cannibalism. But there's more to their story of survival. The real story is about mothers bravely trying to keep their children alive through one of the worst survival disasters in American history, pioneer history. It is a story of impossible choices, gut-wrenching sacrifice, and resilience. Against all odds, when hope seemed lost, the women carried the burden of survival. A wagon train headed west toward California. Like thousands of Americans during the Westward expansion, the families dreamed of fertile land, opportunity, and better future. Among them were the families of George and Tamsen Donner, Jacob, Elizabeth Donner, James and Margaret Reed, Patrick and Margaret Breen, and many others. The journey should have taken only a few months. One small decision changed their lives. The group chose to follow a shortcut known as Hastings Cutoff. It was at this moment that changed the course of their journey. The route led them through difficult mountains, harsh desert crossings, and terrain that slowed them dramatically. Precious weeks were lost, livestock died, supplies dwindled. But the time they approached the Sierra Nevada mountains, winter was coming. Then came the snow. Lots of it. In late October and early November, powerful storms covered the mountains like a white blanket. The Donner Group tried desperately to cross. They failed. The pass ahead disappeared beneath massive snowdrifts. The road behind vanished under the white blanket of snow. They were trapped. Most of the Donner Party established camps near Truckee Lake, today's Donner Lake. The Donner families themselves were stranded several miles away at Alder Creek. The shelters were crude. Some families crowded into rough log cabins. Others lived in makeshift tents built from wagons and canvas. The roofs leaked. The floors were dirt. Snow piled around the structures until some cabins looked like snow caves. Many believed the storms would pass, but they didn't. Winter tightened its grip. Food vanished rapidly. At first, families slaughtered their remaining oxen and cattle, then boiled hides. They also chewed strips of leather. Anything remotely edible became valuable. Sadly, adults grew weak. Movement became exhausting, and starvation grew. And starvation changes people. It drains strength from their bodies. It clouds their judgment. It turns ordinary tasks into monumental struggles. And yet throughout the camps, women continued working. They cared for the children. They rationed food. They gathered fuel when possible. They nursed the sick. They tried to maintain some sense of normal life amid the growing despair. Imagine trying to comfort a hungry child when you know there is nothing left to feed them. That was the reality facing these mothers every day. They kept on supporting their families. One woman stood out among the survivors. Tamsen Donner. She was educated, capable, and deeply devoted to her family. Tamsen had opportunities to leave the mountains, but when her husband George became ill and weakened, she refused to leave him. George Donner was basically the captain of the whole party. He suffered severe injuries and illness. Tamsen remained by his side, even as the rescue became possible. Even when staying behind greatly increased danger to herself, her loyalty would ultimately cost her her life. By December, the situation had become desperate. A group of 15 of the Donner Party decided that they could not wait any longer. They would attempt the impossible. Using snowshoes fashioned from ox bows and rawhide, they would cross the mountains on foot to seek help. The group became known as the Forlorn Hope. Among the 15 were 5 women. Their journey became one of the most remarkable survival stories in American history. They battled blizzards. They got lost. Food ran out almost immediately. People collapsed along the way. One by one, members of the party died. Yet something extraordinary happened. While most of the men in the group eventually perished, all 5 women survived the ordeal. Historians have noted that women generally had a better survival rates during the Donner disaster, partly because they required fewer calories, partly also because they can conserve their energy, while many of the men had spent months performing hard labor. Whatever the reason, the women displayed astonishing resilience. Back at the camps, conditions grew even darker. Deaths became frequent, and sadly, families watched loved ones pass. Children became orphaned, parents faced impossible decisions. Modern audiences often focus on the cannibalism that occurred during the winter. But this was not murder for food. These were starving people trapped for months with no realistic source of food, with unimaginable circumstances. Many resisted for as long as possible. The choice was horrifying, but for some it meant survival. As winter dragged on, rescue parties finally began reaching the mountains, and then the first relief expedition arrived. What they found shocked them. Survivors were skin and bones. Many were too weak to walk. Children looked decades older than their years. Some had not even eaten proper food in months. The rescuers immediately faced another problem. They couldn't take everyone with them. There was too many survivors and not enough supplies. Some had to remain behind and wait. Imagine watching rescuers arrive and then watching them leave without you. For many women, this became another agonizing test of endurance. Margaret Reed emerged as one of the quiet heroes of the camps. Accounts suggest she played a critical role in helping maintain order and keeping survivors alive when hope was fading. Others cared for children who were not their own. Orphans were sheltered by whoever could help. Family lines blurred. Survival became collective. If one child lived, everyone shared in the victory. If one child passed, everyone felt the loss. At Elder Creek, conditions remained dangerous. George Donner eventually died. Tamsen Donner remained with him until the end. She never abandoned her husband. When later rescue parties reached the camp, Tamsen herself was gone. Her final days remained surrounded by uncertainty and conflicting accounts. But her devotion has become one of the enduring symbols of the Donner Party tragedy. Spring had finally arrived. The snow began to melt. The mountains slowly released their grip. One by one, survivors were brought out. The ordeal that had begun with dreams of California ended in grief, trauma, and loss. Of the original party, only about half survived. Yet many of the surviving women carried on. They built new lives in California, raised new families, worked farms and businesses, and tried as best as they could to move beyond the nightmare they had endured. But many never truly escaped it. Some survivors reportedly refused to discuss the events for the rest of their lives. Others carried emotional scars that lasted for decades. Today, the Donner Party is often remembered as a story about starvation, but perhaps it should go also to be remembered for a story of resilience. Because when civilization disappeared, when food was gone, when hope disappeared, many of the women refused to give up. They protected their children, they cared for the sick, they crossed the mountains, they endured grief that is difficult to imagine. And through their determination, dozens of lives were saved. The snow eventually melted, but the courage of the women who endured that winter remains frozen in history. History often remembers the fighters, but some of the greatest survivors were those who refused to let hardship take away their compassion, even as their world collapsed around them. If you enjoy this content, subscribe. Until next time.